Welcome back, everybody. Here we are for some more chess, and let's just kind of get right on into it, see if we can't progress through and have a good time here with this video. I'm playing black at the bottom, he's white up top, and like I mentioned, oh, whoa, too many clicks at once. Like I mentioned in the last couple of videos, we're going to be seeing a few games in a row of fried liver. Not too many, it's less than I expected to see, but we're still going to see some. So, game showed up in this position. This is how the game came to me, and this is where it was when we started. So it's up to me to decide how it is that I want to respond. I could move my queen over to here. I could try and do some shenanigans by putting him in check and then seeing if there's a way for me to respond. And those are really the only two realistic options you have. He's probably going to be getting that rook depending on how factors play out. Between these two options that I'm looking at, this time I decided, well, I've been doing this recently and it's been working out, so let's just keep continuing to take this piece down over here and hope that when he takes it, my horse is then able to follow up with a check, freeing up this line, freeing up this line, and giving me some opportunity to get some additional attacks in here, up some space, and hope that my increased amount of space and offensive potential will make up for my loss of bishop to pawn. In a perfect world, if I have enough time, I can bring this rook out and not lose anything for his fried liver attack. So he does in fact capture it. That seems to be the common play, but that is unfortunately also going to, unfortunately for him, allow me to progress into whatever it is that I feel like doing. So we already see that this has made a huge jump as far as the board is concerned. Letting him get into this position is really bad for black, and all of a sudden, even that looks alright because of material alone, and then just kind of goes down. He's now given up his initiative, given up his position. Have a little bit more room to work with that I want. Again, my queen and rook are still forked. They are still under duress, so I need to figure out something to do about them. But my queen at least has an ally now with check, giving some additional attack on the horse. I could even just bring my rook straight over and pin the horse so that it cannot take my queen, which would be fantastic. So there's a little bit of options I have in that regard too, and I'm going to want to deal with that bishop. So I decided I'm going to go queen first to get it out here, give some extra defense to this piece, put an attack on here, and then I can start working with other pieces. That, in hindsight, that may not have been the best way to go. He just blocks it with his queen. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, if I have to trade, which I think I might be stuck into doing at this point, the net result was he took a pawn, I took a pawn, he took a bishop, I took a pawn, so I am going to be down just a little bit. At the same time, I'll have a little bit more space to work with. It'll be my move, and I'll have a little bit more open space, a little bit more freedom for my pieces. Meanwhile, he hasn't touched half of his board. His rook is a little blocked in, so I'll have a little bit of loss for that positional advantage, and I'll just have to hope that I can get along with it. I guess if I don't want to trade, I can plop down here with the horse and take it. It's not ideal, so it's really, if I use my queen and then he comes back to take, actually I guess at that point I would have to use my horse immediately anyway. Well, no, I could, no, the horse, I can't. So if I do trade, I'm going to be forced to use my horse. And if I don't trade, his queen is pinned, so he can't just take the free one. He would have to then trade, and I'll get to use. So I guess either way, queens are very extremely likely to be traded. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to have to end that sequence with me, my knight somewhere. So I guess that means that now would be my free turn, as opposed to after. I'm sorry, if I initiate the trade, my free turn afterwards is negated. So I guess now is my best chance where I can do something. I could try pushing up a pawn, try moving my rook, and therefore I don't lose anything for it at that point. And then leave him up to the trade, and my horse has to move down to safety. So that's what I'm going to do, and that is how he wants to respond. So it works out in the only way it can. but at least I've got a sort of a pin and discovered attack going here at the same time. Depending on if he moves, then I'll have a discovered attack. If he doesn't move, I have a discovered pin. I'm not sure if that's even a thing or what I'm supposed to do with that, but I suppose, I mean, attacking this pawn's kind of worthless. Here's kind of worthless. I don't want to get, so I don't think it's really that beneficial, but having a major piece on the same line as the opposing king is at least interesting. It gives me some opportunity. Maybe if I just push this pawn up, kind of block the bishop from protecting his knight down there, I can start to work with that a little bit. So he doesn't want any of that, however, just moves his king right out of the way. Don't know if he should have bothered moving his knight out of the way first. Because what am I really going to do with it? If he puts his knight there, sure, I could pop mine over, get check from the rook so he can't take it per se, but he could just plop his knight down there, and then I'm still not going to take it because it's defended by the pawn. So it doesn't really work out in that way. I'm not going to get anything for it. I'm not going to be able to just suddenly take it or have any attack. So I think he may have been alright despite the discovered attack incoming. He may have been alright just to move straight up. But he chose to break the pin/discovered attack first. That allows me to go after this bishop like I saw earlier. Breaks the defense on this horse, so now I'm attacking two pieces all of a sudden, and I freed up some space. So that was just a really killer move. There's definitely going to be some flexibility with it now, so me giving up a little bit of material at the start is finally paying off, because again, we're 10 moves in, he hasn't moved half of his board, and I'm finally kind of ready to go, just a little bit down, ready to go. So he figures these two pieces are both being attacked, therefore he's going to lose one regardless, unless he's got some crazy thing. Knight wasn't there. Try throwing a check, something like that, but he's probably just going to have to accept the fact that these pieces are going to die, so maybe trade one of them away for a pawn, which is what he's thinking. Because at that point, you know, he took a pawn, I took a pawn, change this there. He took a pawn, I took a pawn, took my bishop. Getting a phone call, are you kidding me? I can't answer that right now. Took another pawn. Had this one minor exchange here of pawn for piece, and now we're having another one pawn for piece. So that's all right. It'll make the game pretty much equal in material at that point. So I take it right on back, and I still have this attack that he's forced to deal with ASAP. And I proceed now, since these pawns are all disappeared, lots of open lanes, his guys haven't moved at all, I'm just going to take control of the center, as much as we're going to get with pawns anyway. Just have two pawns, take control of these files. The horses are still attacking squares and can bounce around as well. So that'll give me lots of space up in his zone. Bishop is nice and free, they can take some extra space in his area. And this rook has sort of claim of the file for now. So I feel like it just opens things up a little bit. Plus, if I really wanted to be in some pressure on his bishop and force him to I almost would be able to trap it. So I guess really I'd be one turn away pushing that up before I could trap his bishop. Wouldn't be anything about it at that. So there's thoughts of that as well. I'm just kind of disguising it a tiny bit. But he opts to take this extra space while he has the extra space, and I will happily get rid of my undeveloped bishop for this trade. And in addition, I'll be able to bring my king one square closer to the center. The longer a game goes on, the more you're going to want your king, or at least around your other pieces for defensive purposes. Once the pieces start getting off the field, he's not quite as vulnerable in open space. So having him more in the center will benefit me. So I traded away a piece that was inactive, hadn't moved yet, hadn't done anything, and got slight tempo for it for his piece that had moved around a handful of times. Definitely working out in my favor now. I think material-wise, we're actually dead equal at this point. Yeah, 4 pawns here, 2 pawns here, so 6 total. 2 rooks and 2 minor pieces. But all of this, all of his stuff is still in starting position. Whereas I've got at least 3 of my guys out and some pawn central activity going on as well. Both of our kings are slightly advanced as well. So pieces are completely identical. He hasn't moved anything because he took so much time to get these attacks going, and then having to retreat from my pawns. He's lost any advantage that he would have gained with his fried liver. So he develops out a knight to get something going, and I decide to continue to further my development of the king, guarding both of these squares, guarding this one as well. Puts me on a light square since he only has a dark square bishop, as opposed to if I went to this square and block off him going to this other empty square. So it doesn't really matter which square I chose to move the king. I feel like this is going to be, the side of the board is going to be quote-unquote central for now, just because that's where the pawns are. So this is where the action is going to take place for the rest of the game. So my king is also one step closer to this new center, the shifted center. Develops a pawn a little bit, get a foothold out there. More importantly, it frees open a space for his bishop. I bring out my other rook, so now I am fully activated. I've got a discovered attack ready to go as well, so that'll give me some opportunity to maybe move a horse here. It's not going to help me exactly. I'm going to need something else to attack. I'm going to need something else for this discovered attack to really work out, but who knows, we'll see. Opportunity, yeah, maybe knocking. So he takes this time to run his king away, which is a little interesting. I feel like he would have been better off just developing his bishop and therefore stopping the discovered attack. Yeah, it would pin his bishop for the time being, but he needs to get his pieces out, and then while his king is still on the 7th file, or I guess the 2nd file, he could get both of his rooks activated, then run the king away. So I think his order of that was just a little bit wrong, because now this rook is strewed. It's stuck and screwed at the same time. The rook is strewed. Yes, sure. That works out. And I don't really have anything to do with this horse. He did give me a nice opportunity here to get a fork in. It's more that I wanted to lay claim to open files if I can, and at least distract him a little. His only real way of defending it be to move this rook over, to which then he's unguarding this pawn. So I guess there is a little bit of something for it. It's not totally worthless of just taking an open file, which is exactly how he tries to respond to defend. Downside is, if he goes immediately back, if I choose to retreat, he's then going to be looking at this pawn in turn if I'm not careful with horse of my own. Suppose I horse up and defend him, but then this horse has nowhere to go at all, so he'd be worthless. Therefore, 2 horses would be worthless if he's stuck on defense. So I wouldn't want to get in that situation. At the end of the day, if we trade pawn on this side for pawn on that side, whatever. All the action's over here, which is where my pieces are. I've got a little bit more control over that time being. So he just moves down so that he keeps his file, keeps his pin on this horse, and he's getting out of the attack of the as well. So I bounce him right back to where he was, attacking his again, forcing it to move. Just kind of wasting a little bit of time. No big deal. I got a pawn out of it. Now I'm just going to start advancing as well, since my king is covering these squares of where his knight wants to go. Maybe I should have considered pushing this guy first to block off that square. I'm not sure. At the very least, I'll force him to yet again just move around. Maybe he cramps himself in. That'd be great. Maybe he wants to offer up a trade, and I'll take advantage of it. Although, actually, that'd be interesting. I don't know. It'd be interesting. But he chooses to cramp himself in just a teeny bit more, retreating, blocking in where his king is. Doesn't particularly help him to be on the square. And I now reveal this opening so that I have both of these files for myself. My knight is in a slightly more prime position. Put a little bit of extra pressure in some of the squares in front of his king to start going at his pawn by using a lot of his pawns. But mostly just trying to offer up this trade, and I can get his rook out of there. All of these squares will be mine taken. We'll see if I'm able to get any progress out from there. He proceeds to kind of just pass the turn. He didn't want to make the trade outright, but then he wants to offer me the chance to make the trade. To which, after said trade, he's attacking my horse and forcing it to move. So it's just like it was with the queen earlier. Like, I could trade and then I'm forced to move a horse, or I can just make my free turn now and trade after. So it's not exactly ideal, but at this point I figure I'm just going to make this trade. I feel like I'm just one trade away from having enough of an initiative where I can start taking more stuff. I guess I am one pawn up, so as long as I keep this open file, which I plan to for the rest of the game, won't be able to dislodge my control over it. His king won't be able to get help, because the rook will be blocking off the file completely. These two pawns will just mosey their way on down and eventually win 2 versus 1. So trading isn't necessarily bad. I'm not up very much, I guess. Like, it's tentative, but I'll still be alright. So his king had 2 squares to go to. I don't think it particularly matters which ones he runs away to, because I'm just going to end up trading this piece anyway. So he goes closer to the horse to put some sort of action on him. By taking his rook, I'm 1, getting at the very worst a trade. 2, I'm defending this guy, so if he somehow doesn't see that stick. Or he does, he takes it back. Yes, he blocks off some of my squares, which is kind of unfortunate, but he also further moved this pawn away. So now I've got a passed pawn and a semi-passed pawn. I'm not sure what the term for this is, when it can still be taken, but there's nothing in its way. But his pawn is isolated completely, and I've got all my pieces in the area, so it's going to fall relatively quickly. Not too terrified of it. So in the end, I think that works out for me a little bit. He's just moving his king more. He still has not developed his bishop whatsoever. Granted, at this point, he doesn't have any to put it, but something, because it's blocking in 2. So I'm not sure. Maybe he's afraid I would hop down here for the pawn, and he's blocking off the horse, I guess. Yeah, I mean, with his bishop and king, my horse is completely nullified, so I suppose there's that. And then once his king goes here, there'll be nothing else I can do about it. Just be able to straight take it somewhere. So I suppose he's got that going for him. Pop that in the spare turn, so it wouldn't be taken. Anyway, I take a little bit of extra time, just kind of ignore this threat. Maybe I didn't even recognize that threat yet, but I'm targeting this guy. It'll be another free pawn, which will help out since this is where the new king side is. If I can reduce these numbers, it'll guarantee that I can get a push with having some extra defense in here. I would certainly like that. It also would create a second isolated pawn for him, which would be just great. He decides that he doesn't want any of that. He's going to straight attack with some defense, and therefore if I stand here, no big deal, he just moves. But by him doing so, he left this guy unguarded. So goes to attack, and instead I just take a different piece that was currently a-okay. No big deal. Well, that's fine, he responds. We trade pawns at the end of the day. It's not too big of a deal. I could trade it as well, but then he just trades right back, so that doesn't really help me. So I'm just going to push. I'll keep the capability of having adjacent pawns on one line. Gives this horse a nice pivot as well, a nice square to sit on if I really... And I'll just have to work a little bit harder to take that. He's still isolated, so at the end of the day, we traded pawns and I made his structure worse, whereas mine changed that much. I'm okay with that, even though I was up, what, it was -4 at one point. In a way, I'm slowly losing and it's getting closer, but it's also getting closer to him just not having it, just being horse choked out of it. He finally develops his bishop somewhere to free up his rook, and by doing so, it also opened up another pawn. As we can see, by virtue of my knight sitting here, he's not directly accomplishing anything. Sure, it could just trade bishop, no big deal. Can't take this pawn because it's guarded. But now he of all the turns, you know, we're 27 turns in and he hasn't developed this bishop anywhere to free his knight up. He picks now to be the turn to do so because he doesn't want it taken away. And by doing so 2 turns in a row, he's preventing the defense from something else from existing. he's removing it. So I'm able to then take that pawn. And I thought, you know, maybe fine. He goes straight for it and attacks it. Maybe start working some offense down towards this guy once I have to. My king's still here for now. I'm not terribly concerned. My rook can just defend. Not terribly concerned. I'm taking the extra pawn. I got it. He's going after this guy. Big deal. I'm going to fortify my position a little bit, strengthen it up. All of these squares, with the exception of the one I just took, all my pieces, I should say, are all on light squares, mind you. He only has a dark squared bishop, so I'm cognitively making sure that my stuff is on light squares. That's another reason I want to push this pawn, because he won't deal with it. It's just something to keep in mind when you notice that your bishop, when your opponent doesn't have both bishops, or you can play on his off color. It doesn't totally negate the piece. It at least does offensively. For the most part, yeah, he could combo in squares. He can defend his own pieces. That's pretty much all it is. He can defend his own pieces, but he can't actually attack anything. So, it's sort of removed. And he's just trying to go after my horse. I did negate one of its squares to go to, but he still has this fantastic foothold that's never going to go away because there's no pawns to disrupt it anymore. The life is slowly getting choked out of him. He doesn't really have anything going. He's got nothing planned. There's no strategy that's strung together since he just barely now has pieces. And he decides that he's going to retreat one more time, go after my piece that's stranded on the side of the game. Completely irrelevant. These four squares are all occupied, or I should say defended, pieces of his own. I guess now that this horse is back here, I do have a safe square to go to. So I suppose I could have gone here. But I figured at this point, this horse has been stranded over here, got nothing else to do. Took a pawn to help give me an advantage. I'm just going to trade that away, get him out of there. It pushes his king further off to the side as well. I could probably my rook over here now, start working on some sort of tactic, see if I can get something. Maybe I could just straight move my knight over here, threatening his rook and also this pawn, without him having a way of defending. And if I just take it, then that's fine. I take trade. The trade at this point helps me out. So maybe there's something like that I could do. But I decided I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm going to solidify my position. I don't want him pushing that pawn. I want to start getting my king up in this area. Start pushing this pawn. And pushing all three of these pawns since they're already developed. So maybe I could have done something like this just to force a trade and open. But maybe I want to leave him there too. Like, I don't have to trade and simplify the board. Sometimes it just works out that way. So, his king can never get back to this half of the board anyway because my rook is there. So he's totally stuck. I'm just going to keep doing what I need to focus on this half of the board itself. And that's not a free because my knight is guarding it. This guy is just going to slowly work his way up here as well, sit on a light square somewhere. Some shenanigans. Take this pawn pretty quick. Just going to have all sorts of defense up here. Start going after his pieces, forcing them to retreat somewhere when they don't retreat to. Random bishop move for the sake of random bishop move. Take pawn. And at this point, he in fact resigned. Accepted the inevitable. And that is the end of this game, gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I tried to keep this one a little bit quicker. It looks like 20 minutes. It's not terrible. And we'll see more of you soon, hopefully. I do have a handful of Pokemon battles that I'm hoping I can do next week. With it being GDQ next week, I usually don't really stream, so that gives me some extra time. Should be able to record the rest of the chess videos I have next week for sure. I'm hoping, at least. That's the thought, that's the plan. That's what I've been doing the last 2 years. I've done a lot of video making during the week of AGDQ, so hopefully it can happen again. But with that, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this game, and I can't wait to play some more games with you as well. See you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy. Peace.